good.
I think y'all are doing great.
You get us going on our house, and it's the baby pictures come out. You know, it's been our baby.
31 years.
Yeah.
All this fretwork is original. We had to restore. There were a couple missing spindles and balls, and Drew replaced those, remade them, and replaced them. That's all original. As you can see, it's huge, and it's it has four separate windows. It comprised the entire design, and so we removed all of those. Some of the sashes had the wood of the sashes had to be restored, and in one case we had to rebuild the sash completely. I think it was the upper one. And there was very little damage to the glass itself. There was only one spot where we had to replace a piece where there was a hole in it, and all the rest was original glass. And of course, we had the lead canes were largely redone to strengthen them.
You notice,
so it's pretty solid window set.
This is what kind of really was the thing that we came back to look at the house one more time, thinking we'd be sensible. And we looked through that window on the porch, and the sun was coming through, and you think, okay.
this is it.
That's it. That really lights up when the sun goes a little farther west. Yeah.
And see, another good point, pointing west, it has to have a dark format to protect the room. At the same time, the jewels bring the light streaming in a most wonderful way. Also, you see on the transom over the entry door, I believe the pattern that you see is the transom that was later used in the adjacent room over the curving window, only a little bit different design with the jewel. In this case, an original transom can be seen as the beginning point of the design for the window that was missing over if you look to the left, in the parlor here.
That transom was boarded over for most of the life of the house.
As said earlier, this tower was pressing down on it, and they just boarded over it. And Fred and Kathy put a steel lintel over it to protect it so that the window could be restored.
But you can see,
that's very much of the period of the house.
Yeah, that was the period that he built that particular house. That was so.
As you notice, as we have talked about the Queen Anne style, which this house is a turreted example of that, like the Aaron house we saw with the Aaron Perkins house. We have rooms that are open to one another with pocket doors, letting you have cross movement and openness, but the ability to close it off for individual room use. Same thing with this way. Coming into the dining room, you can see this beautiful space connected with the pocket doors to the parlor, and then the beautifully restored Palladian window here.
and the transoms you see with the clear glass in the rest of the house, they all open for ventilation because there was no air conditioning back in the day. Although we were missing some of the hardware, so we found a lot of the same period hardware, same design at Old Home Supply in Fort Worth, and so we bought that hardware, and then that was used where we had missing hardware in this house.
You notice this manifold here is set up to create the curving handrails, and as Fred was saying, each of the windows has been restored with this very wonderful latch system, multiple latches instead of one, that actually keep the sashes in register with one another as you carry the load up and down on the window. This manifold behind me has been used to create the handrails, which have been done to go on the porches. We have pictures of that which we sent to you for editing. Also, Go ahead.
No, it's just the little parts that have a diamond shape in the center. One of those was broken, with the tail being that a gunshot, a bullet had come through. What was that?
Well, that was the urban legend.
The urban legend.
Yeah.
But you can see one of those had to be replaced, and the man was so skillful, Malloy.
You can't tell.
We don't remember which one it was, and we cannot tell. All the little trim that he put on it is just
Perfect.
right.
Zipper cutting. And,
Yeah, all of those details to those little things. It wasn't just replacing a piece of glass. He had to do all that. And we really cannot remember which one it was and can't tell.
This glass with the little notches on the edge is called zipper cutting. Is what the glass people call it. And there are very few glass workers that can do this kind of thing.
Very
It's
exactly.
actually more difficult than restoring a stained glass window.
Right. Has no forgiveness on detailing. It has to be perfect.
Malloy was a real artist.
Truly.
Then he retired to do artwork. so it's good we got that in.
You got him when you could.
Yes.
They basically took all these windows into Dallas, restored them, and brought them back.
James, you might want to talk about
Oh, the pocket
this
doors.
construction of the walls,
Oh, yeah. Okay.
the shiplap versus
Right.
where we are today,
Well,
sheetrock.
basically, you'll find there's quite an appreciation of shiplap. It had a structural purpose as well. All these homes of this vintage were balloon framed so that you have a sill and you have floors hung on the studs that come from the sills all the way to the top floor. And in between floors, where you would have the floor, you would declare the floor with sheathing, and you would then toenail the joist from each floor into the stud, and it would bear on the stud as well as the sheathing that was arrayed below it to support the load. So it was really a membrane construction frame, and the sheathing is a big part of that. It goes back to balloon framing in Chicago. And the pocket doors are quite wonderful. These are original.
Smooth, smooth, smooth.
Yes.
These are faux finished doors with the effects on them painted on.
All of the door hardware, a lot of the hardware had been, the original hardware in the house had been missing. And this is called the Roanoke pattern by Corbin. And it came out in the 1890s. And so we were able to, on eBay, to find hundreds of pieces of it, and including the doorknobs and the back plates. And we were able to replace what was missing in the house.
Flooring has been repaired in places and replaced with quarter sawn longleaf pine, and carefully restored windows. As we said, here in the dining room, you can see the jewels are now cleared of, as Fred said, it was covered with paint earlier. So it again gives that western light and the beautiful gleam.
This,
Look at this Paul fretwork. Look at this right here. This has been restored.
Drew restored, there were some broken pieces up there.
That kind of cutting of the wood, it's very vulnerable because they're cutting it very thin, and the grain can just break on that. But Drew was able to restore everywhere it was broken. So we saw a house, in many of the houses you'll have plain hardware upstairs and the fancy hardware downstairs. And that was true in this house, but we saw a beautiful example of a house where upstairs, downstairs, every part of it was this Roanoke design, that in Gainesville. And so we went with fancy upstairs and downstairs since we were able to get the old hardware. Yeah, no, I mean,
this
it's
was used as basically as the template, the original door for the one around the corner in the kitchen that I mentioned we had to have rebuilt when we took the window out. All this beadboard we replaced. The original beadboard was badly damaged. These push-button switches are ones we bought on eBay.
they're old ones, but
They're old ones.
And
So-
all the casings and trim were painted. And Fred and Kathy Telecky had all the casing cleared and painted and restained.
Which Drew
Which
Franklin did.
Drew Franklin did.
What did you use to strip the old paint off with?
Oh,
I'm not sure, you'd have to ask him. Probably maybe a lot of elbow grease. But,
That's a hard. That's tough.
yeah, he's
well,
he's
some of
done
the,
so much
some
of it
the
for
wood,
us, he
wood
just-
strippers you can't buy anymore because OSHA has declared it verboten. Evidently, there was one
Dangerous.
called Strippies that was
I've heard it.
worked
yeah.
really,
Toxic.
really well. It was kind of like a gel that you could put on the wood. Evidently, someone killed themselves inadvertently by stripping something in a closed, small space. And so, of course, immediately the government overreacted and said, no, nobody can buy it now.
so I'm not sure what Drew used, but I
Point
think
of-
what James
Point
is,
of fact, we have in the rooms, we have furnishings that go in the finished house. This, for example, is an historic original stoves right here with all components for fully restored, ready to go into the completed house, as well as an oven over here.
It's a magic chef that is identical to the one that's in the Gamble house that was designed by Green and Green in
See
Pasadena.
right here.
If you look online and look at their kitchen, you'll see even the color is the same.
it's a cream color, which
That's
I was
a
thrilled
really
with.
wonderful
But
antique.
when we first
Functional.
got the house, of course, kitchen. I'm thinking what I'm going to have in the kitchen, and I think, oh, I want a period stove. So then they showed me the cast iron stoves, but they had you couldn't set the temperature, and they were saying, oh, these wood stoves, you get used to figuring out how to make them right temperature. So then I was doing all the research, and then I realized how civilized things got in the 20s. So I figured, okay, this will be an original kitchen that they modernized the stuff in it, the appliances and the sink in 1920s.
That's
so,
the concept.
So this is a 1920s stove, and the fridge and the sink is going to be a 19.
So that
20s
door we're looking
one.
at is a restored French door from the late 1800s.
Beautiful. I just wondering.
Kathy wanted to describe this to you. Kathy, describe your
Well,
butler's
this is
pantry here.
the butler's pantry, and part of it had a different things done to it, but my husband found this cupboard, and so this became the design for our cabinetry. This became, I have many drawings of how I was going to do the butler's pantry. But
We
then
have the key for these original locks.